this so that we have a timer, and then I'm gonna start some music because I'm a good, really
So
good
did we
streamer.
determine how that game's being counted?
For the predictions, it's just zeros. That's the most fair way to do it. I don't
I
see
mean,
a better way.
I did predict who would win. That's all
Oh,
I'm saying.
see, but I also predicted who would actually win the game that was played.
So the issue is that they cheated. You
Right.
know.
Um,
Shit, does that mean I need to update this? Okay,
no,
let me
don't
update it
don't
real
worry
quick.
about it right now. Like,
I'm updating it, man.
okay,
It's too late.
whatever
It's
you want to do
happening.
so that you don't forget. But I'm not updating it on the thing. I'm just gonna say that you're owed a game and you can take one away from us. So,
Nah, it needs to be updated.
wait, I'm
Okay,
getting trolls. Oh no.
so you got that one right. So 16.
Who is this?
Put this at 9. What's up?
Oh, somebody hovering the standings, giving me a little blue circle on my or a little blue square on my standings. I don't need.
What am I clicking on? Oh, here, I'll move it. I'm sorry.
It's not you. If it was you, I'd be like, hey, yo, could you like click off?
Are you
No,
sure it wasn't me?
yeah, it's
Is it
labeled
still
as
there?
somebody, and it's still there.
Oh shit, dude.
Where
Yeah, I
do
don't know.
save this? The big brain last second editing here.
Yeah, same.
It doesn't help that the gold stats were updated after I was already in bed last night. So
Report those motherfuckers.
I find it's really difficult to report them when it's like the third or fourth person attempting to do the stats and is actually doing them all right.
Yeah, I mean, thank God that there is somebody doing it, right?
Yeah. Shout out to Chex for finishing off the stats.
Yes, praise be unto Chex Mixin.
Also, Silverhammer and I support my team for not, giving up halfway through the split.
Yo, Silverhammer's actually insane. Like, the amount of stats that he does for Diamond is amazing. He doesn't get,
Oh,
like, he should get called out so much more because he's amazing.
there was a question I asked you like 3 days ago. It was actually yesterday, but I'm gonna type it again. Okay. Because I like half made the slide for it, and then now I can finish it if you want to.
Yeah, no, go ahead. That's
Okay.
fine.
I mean, I
Wait,
think
who's
that's...
Voy Boy? Are you Voy Boy or am I Voy Boy?
Who's Boy Boy?
Yeah, which one of us sounds like Voy Boy?
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
I'm pretty sure I don't sound like it, and I don't think that you do. Oh, he said you. I don't know. Surprisingly not helpful.
Aikato? I think that Aikato sounds more like Boy Boy than I do, but...
Yeah, I don't. I don't know.
I'm not really the judge of my own... I try to listen to my own voice as little as possible.
Agreed. That's some cringe shit when I listen to my own voice.
Alright, 2 more logos and then I'll be done with the PowerPoint, like a couple seconds before we're supposed to start the podcast, so that's...
Hell yeah, dude. 25 seconds to spare?
There we go. These wub-wubs weren't, like, super annoying today, so that's pretty good, too. Oh, never mind. They got kind of intense there for a second. Yeah, this is going pretty hard. There's like... It's like almost like a heavy metal scream involved, and like then the wub-wubs go off.
So I don't get to hear it, because I have Twitch muted.
Yeah, it's
So
it's pretty intense. You'll just have to take my word for it, I guess. Here's an intro video though. All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our Week 11 quarterfinal broadcast. I don't know. Week 11's kind of a weird way to describe that. My name's Maristematic. I'm pretty sleepy today, so apologies if I'm a little more scatterbrained than even usual. With me, as usual, is Akato.
that's me. And I just wanted to call out Chex Mixon in the chat. It looks like she's subscribed to Forest Within, which, I mean, that's a good thing. Forest is a great Kindred player. I just like the emotes, that's all.
They're really adorable emotes. I have no issue with that. I unfortunately ran out of money and I don't have any Twitch subscriptions right now. I have my own,
Same,
and
same.
I have this horrifying Kirby emote, but that's about it. Um, anyway, this week we're going to talk about what happened in week 10 to get us to where we are, talk about our predictions, and then we'll go over a brief playoff preview with some emphasis on the LAN tournament coming next week, as well as our postseason awards. I'll be sending out postseason awards forms directly following the podcast to each individual captain. Apologies if I interrupt something by sending those to you, but I figured you'd want them sooner rather than later. Immediately following us today will be the first quarterfinal match, which we'll go over in a little bit more detail and hopefully get a little bit better preview into it as we go forward. But we've got gold action every night this week, Diamond on Tuesday. Your game's the only one not scheduled. You're sandbagging on us, Akato.
We're working on it, man. We're working on it.
So anyway, our diamond results from week number 10. Lansneck took down Thumb. Team Fish Taco with the 2-0 over GGL, and Unlucky Retribution with the 2-0 over Iron 5 in the only games that mattered last week. So we can talk about all of those, luckily. The first one, the big one, Sneck eliminates those Thumb guys from Spy Kids 2-0.
And this is how you know that we're in the darkest timeline. Thumb had the story, man. They were going hard. They were gonna win out and squeak into playoffs, and unfortunately, they're stopped in their tracks by Sinek. It was, I mean, it was an okay series, but as you can see, it was 2-0 and just kind of not the end to the season that those some guys were hoping for,
Yeah,
right? Like the last time that they were um, in the league, they ended up winning the whole thing, and this time around, they just didn't have as effective a season. Even if they spiked towards the end, they just weren't able to get enough wins to make it in.
yeah, the squeakle unfortunately coming up a little bit short. And you know who has two championships? Chris Mosier does, but he's not in the playoffs, so does it really matter?
uh,
Now, you know who has the opportunity to get two championships? Everybody on GGL.
oh no, that would. I'm not sure I want to make the sacrifice for that meme. Um, there has to be someone else, right?
Yeah, you can just point out specifically Mortally Divine, able to win that, maybe a man down in some areas and two championships. What does that say about the quality of having two championships?
I mean, I think that more speaks to just how strong the league has become over the last couple of splits. Like, just the amount of competition has grown exponentially. That this team that pretty much walked over everybody the last time that they had participated just doesn't even make playoffs this time around.
Yeah. Our next big playoff implication game was Team Fish Taco taking down GGL 2-0, which qualified TFT for playoffs and jumped them over GGL in the standings in terms of seeding. So, um, well done by TFT. They've had a pretty decent end to the season coming into the gate, and now they're set for a match against Landsneck.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great matchup, and this one just continues the narrative of GGL, who hasn't won a game in God almost 2 months. they're just having so much trouble. And coming into playoffs, you don't want to be on a downswing. You want to try to be on the upswing. And GGL just had so much trouble. Even if you look at the drafts in game one, they got comfort across the board with Koala getting his Jarvan, Mortally Divine getting his Orianna. They had the Vayne Tark bot lane with so much scaling, and they just sort of got trounced. Team Fish Taco is looking like a pretty strong team, and GGL just is not.
Yeah, so two teams trending opposite ways, and it allows TFT to get that jump on them for playoff seeding and maybe a little bit easier matchup as a result. Although we'll talk about the teams as they come into playoffs going forward. The last match that mattered was Unlucky Retribution able to take down Iron 5 2-0 and take that first round bye from them. So our two first round bye teams are going to be Return of the Middle Sticks and Unlucky Retribution, and that kind of relegates Iron 5 down to that quarterfinals game.
Yeah, and it says 2-0, 2-0. Um, there are points in both those games where it could have gone either way. Blah blah blah. AP Nautilus is broken. Um, and I just wanted to say, I talked a lot of shit last week. Playing against Curb Stomp, he's actually, even when he was behind, his Zyra pick was actually so effective at just warding out flanks. And that was game one. He ended up playing Zyra. I don't think that was the one that was streamed. He's actually an extremely strong player and definitely surprised me with how effective he was personally. Of course, Sacred Strike had a pretty good series. Really strong game one, not that strong game two, but either way, UR was able to pull out a relatively convincing victory.
Yeah, so that leaves our final standings as thus Return of the Middle Sticks in first place by virtue of their head-to-head over Unlucky Retribution at 7-2. Our third place team is Iron 5, which again head-to-head over Landsneck takes third. TFT slides into fifth after beating GGL this week. Also, both of those teams at 5-4. Sky Zero and those thumb guys from Spy Kids both landing at 7-8, and those were two teams that were expecting a lot better things from their season, and Thumb in particular, losing that head-to-head to Sky, now slides into eighth, and they're kind of your de facto OKLCS returning champions as well as GGL. Seeing those teams in sixth and eighth should really speak to how strong the league's become in just a short time.
Yeah, it's pretty tragic if you're a Sky or Thumb fan. We've noted it a few times throughout the season on the podcast, but it really was the old guard from OKLCS in Sky and Thumb, and they just weren't able to hold up. And even the new old guard in GGL who won last split, is having a lot of trouble this split. It really speaks to how strong these top teams really are, especially since GGL isn't a bad team. This is an extremely strong team. This is a team that nearly swept playoffs last split. It just, every team above them is just a little bit stronger, and that's just the league has gotten so competitive.
Yeah, but what a playoffs that sets us up for. I think that with any six of these eight teams, we have so many potential storylines, and it feels like a lot of those big organizations from Diamond, along with your new one in I5, that is still a lot of continuing players, but um, it it's really good to see a lot of these teams continuing to find success or being able to reinvent themselves season after season and still come back and fight up here in Diamond. It's a lot different from Platinum, where none of those guys have ever really played in Platinum before, other than maybe Sensei Squad. In Gold, it's bits and pieces of different teams that kind of create their own little factions, but Diamond at least feels a little bit more consistent split to split.
Yeah, you see a lot of the same names split to split. Snec has been around forever. UR in one fashion or another has been around. Sky, Thumb are returning. GGL's returning from last split where they were K State. ROTM returning from last split and from previous to that, they were in the LKC. It's just a lot of teams that have at least kept their branding, right? And have stayed with relatively um, similar rosters year to year.
Yeah, we did miss one of the points, the highlight we were making during the preview between Thumb and Sneck was that mid lane matchup between Yeetloaf and Chris Can't Miss, and then Yeetloaf dodges him by playing jungle both games. What's up with that, Akato?
Yeah, Yeatloaf kind of bitched out. He just knew the power of the two championships from Chris Can't Miss. It was just too much, you know. There was also supposed to be a uh, a standing agreement that Sneck would leave both Zoe and Aurelion Sol open to see who ends up going mid for Thumb, and both champions banned both games. Honestly, I think that Sneck and specifically King Yeatloaf just kind of took the easy road out, and I'm just kind of disappointed in them for that.
And OGR's been around most splits in Platinum. I think it's with some new members though. If I'm not mistaken, it's almost entirely new members to the OGR organization. I didn't
I
recognize
think
any of them
most of
from the
them
last
are.
split, but
I think most of them are name changes. Like Doctor Giggles is on that team. I think he's Love Stories.
oh,
Um,
okay. Then
yeah,
this
no, I
is
think
me
most
not
of them are
being
name
as
changes.
informed as I need to be. So
No, I think that people need to quit changing their fucking names because it makes it hard to keep track of you from split to split.
Anyway, our platinum results. Perfect segue. Schmed takes down OGR 2-0. Meat Beats with the 2-1 over Sensei Squad. Kings of Baron with the 2-1 over Team Name here. And as you saw from the competitive ruling today, iTown gets the forfeit win over Gecko Slammer Armageddon. Our standings at the very end are going to be slightly off as a result. They hadn't been updated just yet, but not the biggest deal in terms of where everybody actually stacks out. So Schmidt taking down OGR 2-0 was a pretty decent upset, and Schmidt played some really disgusting team comps. OGR was down widest, but the 2-0 result still coming through pretty strong for Schmidt.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 2-0. Apparently, there was an issue in game one, and OGR had to forfeit it due to, I think, starting late or something. I don't know the specifics on that, so I can't speak to it.
Mhm.
But they only ended up playing one game, and OGR dropped, and it was a pretty convincing win from Schme. They had a really good team fighting comp, and they just sort of took care of business, and that makes it so much more interesting going into playoffs that we're going to see both these teams at LAN, and potentially see a repeat of this matchup.
Where is the Schme logo? This is the Schme logo. It's a probe. I don't understand the question. Anyway, the Schmidt team comp. Can we talk about how disgusting that was? The Caitlyn Lux Zig Siege comp with the super fed Olaf.
It's disgusting. They had such a front line with that Olaf with the Poppy. It's just once you fall behind against that comp, how do you deal with any of that? And the answer is you don't. You just sort of lose.
So it shows that Schmidt has a pretty decent mastery level over that type of siege poke comp, and it's one that you have to consider when you're playing against them now. Do you have to really over index on hard engage with your first couple of picks to try to make sure that they don't pick that poke comp? Like it makes them a nightmare for playoffs. And this is actually the matchup in the first round: Schme versus OGR, with Schme getting the higher seed as a result of this, and some of the other results that happened this week. So it'll be interesting to see how OGR can bounce back, and with their full roster, hopefully they come in with a different mindset.
For sure. They are coming off, they are going to have their normal ADC. And after seeing what Schme has to offer, maybe they have a different look coming in. Maybe they draft a little bit more backline access or a little bit stronger early game to make sure that Olaf doesn't snowball. But it'll be a really interesting matchup for sure.
Yeah. The second game, Meat Beats, able to take down Sensei Squad. It doesn't ultimately help Meat Beats at all, so respect to them for number one playing and number two winning. But it knocks Sensei Squad um, down, creates a three-way tie scenario. Unfortunately or fortunately for Sensei Squad, they don't fall anywhere really. They still lock in that number one seed as a result of all of the other games. But it was an exciting game, and Meat Beats with seismic support able to win.
Yeah, they're coming in and they're taking this season that really wasn't everything that they had hoped for. And they come through at the end, end up taking out the top team, and it's a high note, right? This is something that they can take with them to next split if they stick together, or just to keep a feather in their cap as they watch playoffs, as they see that they beat this team and they had the potential to stand with every single one of these playoff teams.
Yeah, and if they want to come back next split, that should be feeling pretty confident, honestly. Like we were able to build up to this point. Maybe we figured out a little bit about ourselves during this split. Now next split we can come out and we'll be the number one team meat beats, not the punching bag that went 0 for in Diamond capped and now missed the playoffs in Plat.
Yeah, no, I definitely expect great things from this lineup. I still think that they're extremely strong players individually, and I think that given another shot, I think that they'll do pretty well if they stick together.
Our last game and the one that decided the last playoff spot, Kings of Baron takes down Team Name here in a pretty drawn out 3 game series. Um, yeah, this game had all of the marbles playing on it, and you could feel the tension in the game. Neither team really wanted to make that critical mistake. In the end, Fargo made this disgusting play on Zaya, where he was able to layer out some feathers, flash E at the same time, and root 2 people. It was really nicely done, but it swung a team fight just barely in Kings of Baron favor, and they were able to snowball from there in game 3.
Yeah, this was just such a close series, and there were so many back and forths, and either of these teams could have made it out on top. And team name here, even though they lose here and don't make it into playoffs, they can still be proud that they played this team extremely close. And Kings of Baron end up taking that playoff spot, and they hopefully can represent well in playoffs as they're looking extremely strong at this point. They've won so many in a row. I believe it's
It's
four.
4 in a row. They started 0-3, won their last 4 games to squeak into playoffs.
Yeah, they messaged me like 3 weeks ago, and they're like, "Hey, is there still a shot? What are the playoff? What ends up happening? Like, how do we make it into playoffs?" I'm like, "Okay, so you're like 1-3. I think if you win out, like you have some good head-to-heads, and you probably make it in." And that's what they ended up doing. They brought in Mowgli, and they just won out. And, this team's definitely someone to be scared of.
Yeah, in particular, Mowgli and Fargo have really given that team a big boost throughout the second half of the season. Switching Joking Chance from top lane to support seemed like a really smart maneuver as well, and they've made the right decisions that they needed to squeak into that playoff spot.
Exactly, and this is a team that I'm really excited to continue watching.
So our final standings, again, very slightly wrong here at the bottom end, but Sensei Squad takes the number 1 seed by virtue of having beaten Schmet and OGR during the regular season. Schmet slides in there at number 2 after defeating OGR this week, landing OGR at 3 and setting up that rematch during LAN. Kings of Baron takes that 4th slot by virtue of having head-to-head over Team Name here, which again was determined in the last week of the season. Meat beats 1 game off, and then iTown will actually finish at 2-7 with GSM finishing 0-7 or 2-5 0-7, excuse me.
It's all right, you got it. But yeah, either way, the the script writers deserve a raise because just the way that this season ended up ending out with all these teams playing against each other at the end, it was just such a great story coming in. It just makes plat playoffs, even though we don't see them for a couple weeks, it's gonna be that much more interesting.
I'm gonna drag onto the screen really quick. We were I was called out specifically by Zale in order to show um, our preseason predictions for Platinum on stream. So here they are in all their glory. Um, Kato with GSM in first. Uh, I
They let
had
me down.
I
They let
had
me down.
GSM second. We both had Meat Beats making playoffs just to show how wild this division was. I think given some more information that I didn't have at the time, and OGR completely retooling their lineup in like week 2 or 3, I didn't recognize Captain Melonhead, who I think I would have rated team name here higher. Not to make excuses for ourselves here, but we were going in partially blind, and yeah, got called out by Zale. So we both had Schme, not making playoffs, not doing particularly well, and we have to eat a little bit of crow now. So well deserved props to them.
Yeah, I mean, if anything though, we nailed the fucking Quinn mains. We knew they were at the bottom. But no, we were very off. And sometimes we're wrong.
Sometimes it's hard to take a roster at the beginning of the season and figure out where they're going to wind up. However, our diamond rankings are pretty good.
Our diamond rankings are nutty. Like honestly, I had a bad read on like one team, maybe two.
I
But
think
otherwise,
Landsneck with their roster changes threw us for a loop, but other
yeah,
than
Lance
that, yeah.
Snack, it's rigged, man. It's bullshit. They just come in, they give us like this starting roster. I'm like, there's no way that they do anything. But then they just keep swapping people out, and suddenly they have a good roster.
Yeah, and we'll revisit the gold rankings at the very end because we did a combined gold rankings, so we'll kind of have to see which conference winds up being just a little bit stronger at
Uh,
the end. But there it is on stream. You can see our rankings just for longevity's sake or whatever. That's not the right word, but you guys get the idea. So, anyway, our Bilgewater results. Uh, High Octane Gamers took the 2-0 over Flex. Return of the Middle Sticks took a 2-0 over Sleeper Diamonds. Couple forfeit wins. G5 beat UCO in a completely not a meme game. I don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, only two real results worth talking about. The first one, Return of the Middle Sticks able to secure first with a 2-0 over Sleeper Diamonds, as well as knock them out of playoffs.
and it's kind of a bummer. Sleeper Diamonds is a team that I've sort of really enjoyed watching this split, seeing them grow and pick up games off of, really strong teams. And, I expected a lot from them. Unfortunately for them, the way that everything um, fell down towards the end, they didn't win enough games early, and now they had to beat the best team in the league to get a shot, and unfortunately they weren't able to do it. Either way, though, I think that they had a really strong split, and in this series, though, ROTM just kind of took care of business. They looked pretty good.
Yeah, again, Nautilus mid, not the intended pick. I will say that um, checks inted us a little bit in draft. Not gonna specifically go over reasoning, but wasn't planning on playing the Nautilus mid. That was supposed to go top lane as a tank, and might have not locked in a champion and randomness Jarvan, and we had to make it work. Just for instance, maybe. So there wasn't tilt going into game number two whatsoever, and it clearly was the team comp that we intended to play.
Yeah. Either way, ROTM with the worst top laner in the league on Meristematic going legendary on the Jarvan pick to really claw them back and win that game. I mean, he's like top 15 top laners, right, in the league,
Uh,
probably.
Maybe after that one we can put me above Walker M Ranger. Not really sure.
Oh, okay. So we had 14 then.
Um, anyway, Hog's gonna take the number two seed with a 2-0 over Weird Flex, but okay. These games were very close, honestly. Cyrene maybe making the better decision to join Hog. It better in terms of positional ranking in the standings. Maybe not better in terms of his wholesome spirit, but that's a different argument for another day. But at the very least, Hog looks really strong going into playoffs.
Yeah. And I think it really just sort of accentuates the type of team that Flex is, that they're coming off of a win against ROTM, the undefeated team, and then they get 2-0'd by Hog. It definitely makes things more interesting coming down the wire.
I said it wasn't particularly close.
No, I think they're talking about the last game. I think they're flaming me.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fair then. Anyway, Cyrene pulled out the Rumble mid into Diana, and that looked like a pretty decent counter pick, all things considered. Maybe not the one that you expect going into a series with playoff implications on the line, but both mid laners wanted to pull something out, and it wound up being a pretty spicy mid lane matchup.
Surprisingly enough, Rumble is pretty good into melee picks. And yeah.
So our final standings: Return of the Middle Sticks 8-1 takes the top seed. Hog slides in at 7-2. They have the head-to-head over G5, so they take second. G5 slides into third after their, really outstanding win over the UCO Broncos. They'll take the third seed. Flex gets fourth after with the head-to-head over Max. Sleeper Diamonds unfortunately falls to 5-4. They'll slide down to sixth spot and unfortunate elimination from playoffs despite having that positive win rate.
Yeah, definitely a bummer. You see, Max coming in as 6-3, and they don't make it. You sort of expect to be able to, if you win 6 of your games, you at least have a shot. And they kind of had a shot. They just lost to the wrong team.
um, how can Ghost and UCO both be 1-8 when they both would have had to have beaten AM? UCO actually didn't play AVRM2, so that was a double loss. and Ghost beat UCO.
Yeah, God, can't you guys keep up?
Or Ghost
Psh,
beat, I don't even know anymore. There was a
we
double loss
highlight these
somewhere in
games
there.
every week, man.
Yeah. The bottom of the standings ultimately doesn't really matter. It was, yeah.
It
Anyway,
matters for posterity's sake.
yeah, for sure. Shadow Isles, unnecessary roughness 2-0 Landsneck. Oklahomies took down SEAL Team 6-2-0. No apologies with the 2-1 over the Piltover Pokes. TLM took down Get Money Boys and Yellow Jackets with the 2-0 over RKO. Um, so no apologies. Needed the win. Maybe a little bit sandbagging toward the end here as they dropped the game to ST6 after having kind of a rough end to the season, mostly due to their schedule. I'll admit, not necessarily due to the way that they were playing, but squeaking into the playoffs just a touch after 2-1ing against Piltover Pokes.
Yeah, and this is a team that looked so strong at the midway point through the split, and since then has kind of just ended on a down note. And it'll be really interesting to see if coming to playoffs they're able to do better um, than they have the last few weeks. We'll see if they're able to regroup, and uh, we'll see if we can see a resurgence of that earlier season. No apologies that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and this series was honestly pretty close. Of course, it's the 2-1, but
Hmm.
the two wins for No Apologies were pretty tightly contested as well. Piltover Pokes had a lot of opportunities, and um, when you're coming in as No Apologies, looking to secure that third seed, dropping a game and being up against the ropes a little bit against the eighth place team in the division, maybe not the biggest confidence boost headed into playoffs.
Yeah, definitely not what you're looking for. They're sort of the GGL of the gold, where they start off really strong and towards the end it's been pretty yikes.
Again,
But at least
a
no
lot of it's
apologies
due
is
to
able to
schedule.
win.
They had TLM and UXR back to back in the last half of the season.
Nah,
That's tough to regroup from, but I still
nah,
don't
that
think.
doesn't fit my narrative.
Yeah,
We're
I
gonna ignore that.
I still don't think losing to ST6, it, when you lose to ST6 and then drop a game to Piltover Pokes, that kind of does signify the bigger long range problem rather than something specific to just those two teams.
Yeah. No, they got cheese. It was unlucky, man.
Okay.
Unlucky.
Oklahomies knock out ST6 in our big, most important match of the week. That 2-0. It was really nicely snowballed, both games from Oklahomies. It was pretty tightly contested for 15 20 minutes, and then Oklahomies able to burst the game open after that. And as a result of this, plus the way the tiebreakers stack out, they secure the number 4 seed with this win.
Yeah, no, it'll be really interesting to see this team that um did they end up securing the fourth seed?
Yeah,
Is that right?
I hope so. We're playing them this week.
Oh shit. I mean, I guess so then, huh? Sorry, I was looking at a list. But no, yeah, really good on them to have a strong showing. Very different from No Apologies, who came in with a whimper. Oklahomies are finishing their season on an extremely strong note, and we'll see if they're able to pull an upset.
Yeah, and they've run the mini gauntlet here in the last couple of weeks. They beat like every other team that is remotely tied to them, just running in a line into playoffs. And we'll just go over their gauntlet, their little gauntlet run that they did. But uh they took down GMB after the bye week, lost to TLM, but everybody did, so that doesn't affect your standing really. Beat Yellow Jackets, beat ST6. So those are the three teams that were in the area of them in the standings. You get head to heads over all three of them. There's no way that you can be passed, right?
That is indeed how head-to-heads work. Yes.
And in particular, the way that they flex in a sweaty boy. He came in and played jungle in most of these series. He played support once or twice. It seems like they have a good handle on a six-man roster and a six-man rotation for them, and it'll be interesting to see if they can use that in playoffs or if they do just opt for what they think is the strongest roster available. Um,
Yeah, no, it'll definitely be extremely interesting. It's so hard for professional teams to utilize a six-man roster, let alone a gold cap team playing in the GRLCS. It'll be really interesting to see if they're able to use it effectively.
Final standings then for Shadow Isles. Sorry, I'm still not healthy. This plague has just lasted. But wow, these standings aren't right. That's unlucky.
See, this is the list I was looking at. This is why I was
Yeah, I don't
confused.
blame you at all then. TLM 9-0. They're the number one seed. UXR's 8-1, number two. No apologies. Finishes 6-3. They secure third. Oklahomies will be over Yellow Jackets by virtue of head-to-head at 5-4. And that finishes Yellow Jackets just outside the playoffs, number five. GMB and ST6, one game off, and then the rest of the teams after that.
And which is tragic. Yellow Jackets, the team that we talked about every single week. And unfortunately, this is going to be the last week we can talk about them as they weren't able to slide in. Unfortunately, weren't able to pick up enough wins down the stretch to secure a playoff spot, and they get leapfrogged.
Yeah, and with that, that eliminates the kill leader from all of Gold Cap January from the playoffs. You kill a bunch of people, and at the end, there's nothing waiting for you, and it doesn't fill up that void in your life. Let that be a lesson.
Well, thanks, Maris. Now I'm not going to go kill people. This has been
The
life
prediction
changing.
standings, these are going to have to be tweaked just a little bit. We're throwing out the iTown versus GSM game, which actually makes me and the viewers have a terrible plat week, by the way.
Uh,
So that'll be an 0-3 plat week from both of us, and it'll be a 1-2 for Aikido after throwing out that game.
yeah, I was able to get the Kings of Baron win in there, but honestly, that Platinum week was just so rough, as there were so many upsets in there. Um, so the actual standings, if you're looking at the bottom, is Maris at 119 and 42, Kato at 125 and 36, and then the viewers at 120 and 41.
So
So it's a
it's a 5 game difference.
5 game difference, six over you.
So
So you have a little bit of ground to work up. You need to predict
yeah,
a few upsets.
you'll have to predict all the way around the quarterfinals and semifinals in order to make it happen, basically on the comeback. So Aikido might be the superior analyst for this split. We'll see if he finishes it off.
Yeah, me and my head ass opinions.
No, the viewers did not pick Hog. The viewers picked Flex. Anyway, I'm gonna turn it over to you just for our last Aikado's corner of the year.
Yeah, after a brief hiatus, and really, I just wanted to talk about propulsion. And for those of you who are new to the scene, you might not remember last split. There were two propulsion teams, Propulsion Gold, which I don't have the lineup in front of me, but they had Checks on there, they had Boar Rider Man on there, and a
Mehuli
couple other
Drodvir and Cyrene.
Mehuli, Drodvir, and Cyrene. Either way, Propulsion Gold ended up winning the whole thing, beating uh, most of what is now Return of the Middle Six in the finals. Um, and then Propulsion Diamond ended up having a million roster issues. I was actually a part of that team, or I mean, I don't know how you define a part. I think I played in less than half their games, but I was on the starting roster. I was there. I was there in spirit. Um, but I think it's really interesting that they ended up making playoffs and falling out in quarterfinals. In my mind, I think that an interesting narrative coming up is it more likely for the remnants of Propulsion Gold, who are now on Return of the Middle Six, and I guess Cyrene on Hog, um, are they more likely to hold up the Propulsion brand and end up winning it all? Or are the Iron Five in Diamond more likely to fall out in quarterfinals and hold up the Propulsion Diamond brand, as they're returning 4 players from the end of the season from Propulsion. Both of these teams are sort of bringing in the Propulsion mantle with themselves.
Yeah, and this is something interesting. I really like, specifically those of you who listen to me do the Diamond introductions, but going back and looking at some of these teams' legacies, a little bit of the history of GRLCS, feel like a little bit of a historian as you excavate back just a little bit, but seeing how these teams come together each split and what their maximum possible finish is, what their floor is, and seeing if you can break out of that mold is really interesting.
Yeah. And I think by virtue of, it's probably easier to lose than to win. It's probably more likely that the Iron 5 end up losing in quarterfinals because they have a hard matchup. Um, than ROTM just winning, right? Um, but either way, I think it'd be really interesting, and hopefully for the Iron Five, I imagine it would be incredibly tilting if they were to repeat last year and not make LAN. Yeah, I don't know any of them personally, but if I did, I would assume they would be extremely tilting, and not really what they were hoping for when they made this lineup.
All right, so we're uh, getting into just under an hour left before our first quarterfinal match. So let's start to talk playoffs. I mean, we've been kind of previewing them, but we'll get our hard line. This is the official seeding for Diamond. Return to the Middle Sticks first, Unlucky Retribution second, Iron Five third, Landsneck fourth, Team Fish Taco fifth, and GGL sixth. So our first round buys go to Return to the Middle Sticks and Unlucky Retribution. Um, yeah, both of these teams wound up with a one game advantage uh, into the playoffs, and they look like the two strongest teams. I don't know that there's like a fluke one seed that came out of this.
Yeah, no, both these teams are extremely strong. Though I think most of the top of Diamond is extremely strong, and everyone can take games off of each other. But you probably could definitively say that ROTM is looking like the strongest, and UR is right behind them. Um,
Yeah. So our first, excuse me, our first quarterfinal game, the third seed Iron Five taking on the sixth seed Good Game Losers. This is kind of a tale of two teams. You have Iron Five, who they defeated GGL in week 8, 2-1. They've been 3-1 since the bye. It's not the best game score, maybe not the most convincing wins, but they've managed to rack up some of those wins and put them in their column. Whereas GGL started 4-0, they've been 1-4 since with that one win against Graceland.
yeah, and GGL really has just been on a downswing. We've talked about it every week, and it'll be really interesting to see if they're able to uh, change things around. In the middle of their loss streak was this game against Iron Five, and it sort of cemented them in that downward swing. It'll be really interesting to see if they're able to come out of it. That said, the Iron Five, if you look at it, 3 wins and the game score of 6 wins, that means that they didn't win a single game um, in the one that they lost. That was a stupid thing to say. And then they went 2-1 in two of the other ones. I don't know. They're not convincingly winning things. Uh, both these teams are really close. It could go either way. It probably comes down to like jungle and mid matchups. And we'll see if Yabienda has learned how to look up people on pro builds yet.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Yabyunda traditionally has been the big carry to watch. When GGL had success, when I guess it was K State at the time had success, it usually felt like it was Yabby who had the big carry muscles. He'd just have ridiculous games on the Tristana and the Ezreal. And this second half of the season, it's been pretty muted, pretty mitigated. The one game that they won against Iron Five was off the back of Mortally Divine's Lissandra play, and not so much uh, the the Lucian from Yabby. And other than that, it's been much more of a whimper. And for Koala, hyped up, he's the highest ranked player in the league overall, one of the highest ranked junglers, probably the one who gets the most clout in terms of being the best jungler. He's played some really weird picks, and he hasn't been super successful on them.
He really hasn't, and uh, it'll be really interesting to see if this team's able to refocus their identity onto what did make them successful. Um, yeah, and maybe teams have just figured them out. Maybe the meta just isn't swinging their way. And specifically with Yabienda, we've always talked about how he'll either int your game or he'll win it for you. There's no in between. And, when you're a coin flip player, sometimes the coin flip doesn't go your way a few times in a row.
Curbs passed Koala in terms of highest rank, so maybe the tilt extending to solo queue a little bit from Koala.
Yeah, is he in D2 now?
Jeez, if he's fallen that far, we'll have to rewrite our narratives here. My script is leaking just a bit all
Oh,
over the floor here.
he's D1 0P, which is pretty much D2, right?
Right, but
Let me look up real
he
quick.
was he was master during the start of the season. Like,
Yeah, he hit Masters. Oh my god, get the fuck out of here. Curve Stomp is 15 LP above him. Get the fuck out of here. No, no, I'm not willing to run that narrative. Kamala's still the highest ranked. 15 LP my ass. Okay. Anyway,
Anyway, so this matchup not scheduled yet. Hopefully, it'll get scheduled soon. Cross our fingers here.
no promises.
No promises though. But we'll keep an eye on that one. Our other Diamond quarterfinal is going to be Landsneck versus Team Fish Taco, and these are two teams that have come in pretty hot. Landsneck 3-1 since the bye. They've got that 7-3 game score, feeling pretty good. The head-to-head, Landsneck defeated Team Fish Taco 2-1 back in week one, if we can remember that far back, if that even matters at this point. For Team Fish Taco, they started 0-2. They've been 5-2 since then. They've rotated through different supports, but they found success with each of them.
Yeah, and this is a TFT team that both of these teams are clearly on an upswing. Both of these teams have started out a little slow and just have done so well since then to continue to get wins. And both these teams are looking extremely strong, especially with Sinek. You know, we talk about every week, depends on what roster they bring in. Um, they potentially could be, one of the strongest teams within the league and playing against the TFT that's sort of hindered by the competitive ruling today. It'll be interesting to see if TFT is able to sort of fight past that and win in spite of that.
Um, so yeah, Sneck, it'll be interesting if they win against Team Fish Taco. Where do they go with their roster for LAN? Because you wouldn't have Yeetloaf very publicly not available in the Discord, as he might have booked a trip to a baseball game in Chicago and took Ariel away from us as well. Uh,
Yeah, taking Ariel to go watch some sports ball thing. God, ew.
yeah, so what does the LAN lineup look like for Lansneck if they're able to win? For Team
And
Fish
it
Taco, oh sorry,
go ahead.
and for Team Fish Taco, which support do they happen to flex in? If they find success with their Academy 80 carry that they've vetted as their new 80 carry player for the quarterfinal, do they bring him? Do they bring Demon Repent? Where both of these rosters a little bit up in the air, which isn't maybe not ideal, but it works to both of their benefit potentially going into the playoffs here.
It'll definitely be interesting to see since neither of these teams really has a concrete lineup for land. I mean, likely Landsneck is just going to have what Hamana for support, Flex Killering mid, and then bring in Noctron or someone who's played with them in the past this split. Uh, Either way, I think that the outcome will be really interesting as neither of these teams will be the same at LAN.
Yeah. So our gold playoff matches, we're going to skip platinum because we're going to preview them next week. We're going to preview the whole land tournament. So you platinum people don't get too scary on me. Anyway, so our gold playoffs, TLM versus Weird Flex, but okay. Unnecessary Roughness takes on G5. Hog versus No Apologies, which is our game immediately following the podcast tonight. And then Return of the Middle Sticks versus Oklahomies. So we'll start up at that top. TLM, the only undefeated team in the entirety of GRLCS, versus Weird Flex, but okay.
Yeah, and this is sort of the quintessential best team in the league is they're, obviously 9-0 versus Flex, the team that is able to beat the only other at the time undefeated team, ROTM, but also lose to Hog. It'll be really interesting to see if Flex shows up to this game and is able to bring in the really strong lineup that they have in the past, or the strong looks, or the strong play, or if they'll just sort of die out to an extremely strong TLM team.
Yeah, worth noting they're 3-1 since the bye. That's all been with pretty much the same core roster for Weird Flex, which it should be the one that they're playing in playoffs with Ratboy 80 carry with Joey in mid, who is also going by Ratboy now, which we could have a discussion on, but we'll keep it a little civil for the time being here.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a brand you want to rep. That's on you, man.
Um, so they have a strong lineup. They seem to have identified their potential five best players that they have available. Maybe wishing they had Siren on call, but um, yeah, they're 3-1 since the bye. They took down Return of the Middle Sticks. Can they take down the other Titan in Tastes Like Armageddon?
Are they the Kingslayers?
Oh
It'll
God,
be really interesting either way.
now we're EULCS, and that feels pretty bad. We just have to say
Does that
King
mean that
Sl
we get to rap or?
No, we have to say King Slayers like every other phrase. We're not quite to LEC yet. We're like late EULCS.
Oh, okay, okay. So does that mean next split are we going to release a release a diss track?
Maybe we'll have to see. I'm way too white to rap, so I'd probably have to call in some help. I'd be the vettiest here, Dracos, more more likely. Um, but yeah, this could be a potential really close series, but I think that given the form of these two teams, given what we saw from Hog versus Flex, I think that TLM hands on the favorite to win not only this quarterfinal game but the entire tournament going forward.
Definitely a favorite coming in. It would be a massive upset if Flex is able to pull it off and sort of flex their muscles and take down the strongest team.
Yeah, did want to shout out Silver Spade on TLM has played the most games on a single champion of anybody in GRLCS. He has 10 games of Morgana this split, so maybe you look to not let him play Morgana.
Wait, are you leaking strats?
I It's on the stat sheet. You can look at this. Like this isn't a non-known quantity.
I think that's really interesting. Most Morgana players in Diamond immediately get that shit banned away from them. So perhaps Shadow Isle's not really feeling like it's too much of an issue.
So I wouldn't think that you'd need to point out to ban Morg from Silver Spade, but there were teams that gave Weenie Aurelion Soul in Diamond
Oh
Cap,
my
so
god,
we really don't know where to go from here.
how many times have we said ban Ace? Yeah.
Anyway, our second quarterfinal matchup is going to be Unnecessary Roughness versus G5. Unnecessary Roughness with their only loss to TLM in week 9. Their only other game losses, they've only dropped 2 other games. They actually have the second best game score in gold capped. G5 coming in relatively strong. Their only losses to the two teams above them in the standings, Hog and Return to the Middle Sticks. They've also kept the exact same lineup in terms of both player and position for every single game.
Which is really impressive for a long split where nearly every other team has had at least a few subs. Either way, both of these teams, as you can see, they're very good at taking care of business and beating teams that are below them. They aren't, ROTM that's dropping random games to flex. They're winning the games that they're expected to win, and it'll be really interesting to see both these teams line up as both these teams have looked extremely strong.
Yeah, in particular, I'm looking to see what Unnecessary Roughness does with Swamp Fire. He's looked kind of far and away like the best player on the Rift in most of the games that Unnecessary Roughness have played, and they use in the way that they've flexed their roster around, they put him top lane against TLM. He just destroyed Toe Knuckles in a 1v1 during most of those games, and if he can bring that performance in this week, we'll have to see if Thunderstorm, who's uh, traditionally a mid main up there in the top lane now, if Thunderstorm can stand up to him and sort of equalize that big strength that Unnecessary Roughness has.
Yeah, no, it'll be a great matchup to watch, I think. Two really close teams.
Yeah. Our other 2-3 matchup, the one that immediately follows this podcast, is going to be High Octane Gamers versus No Apologies. Both teams trending a little bit downwards during the last part of the split. For Hog, it was the the loss to Max is kind of the big head scratcher that I think has kind of plagued everybody when looking at Hog. They're 1-0 with Siren in mid lane, which is probably the lineup that they play. You'd imagine they look the strongest on that. They started 4-0, 3-2 since, but again had Return to the Middle Sticks and Max during that time. Whereas No Apologies, they started 5-0, and they have been 1-3 since that bye week.
Yeah, and it's been worth mentioning that No Apologies is the team that even though they started out so strong at that 5-0, there were a lot of games that they played extremely close. There were a lot of 2-1 victories, not a whole lot of 2-0s. And uh, this is a team that's, they play everybody close. Yeah, played more games than any other team. That's because they do take it to 3 games so often.
Oh,
Uh,
Siren did play against Ghost, but is that really a game? I'll let you guys stew on that one.
Why you got to be like that, man?
But so maybe a little inexperience with their current lineup is Hog, but regardless, it's a matchup of two teams that have trended just a little bit downward toward the end of the season and are looking for that big statement performance. Hog, they've looked really good with Siren. Maybe they can come in 2-0, look like the strong favorites headed into LAN, make a big statement for Bilgewater tonight and set that one up. Um, or maybe they fall victim to the no apologies mindset where they play around Pwn Star at the beginning of the game, get him ahead, and then they let No Mind carry late.
Yeah, I think it'll be an extremely close matchup, and judging based purely off of seeding and records, High Octane Gamers should have the edge, right?
Right. They also get side selection in games 1 and 3, which I don't know how much that actually mattered. I don't think we've tracked any stats like that, but
Maybe we should. Maybe we should track, because side selection is randomized throughout the regular season, right?
yeah,
I wonder if
I know that we got side selection a grand total of twice the whole split, so that's pretty cool.
I think we got it like 5 or 6 times. We got it a lot. I mean, the coin flip method is rather effective.
Anyway, this game should be super hype. I'm looking forward to it. We're gonna have, I believe it's Vid and Agent A2 on the call tonight, so bringing in some of our all-star casters and should be a good show. Again, that one's gonna start at 7:30, so it probably won't be immediately following the podcast. Might have a little bit of break in between, but um,
Or we need to start filling time then. We need to, be able to send it directly over to your casters.
Anyway, our last quarterfinal game is going to be Return of the Middle Sticks versus Oklahomies, and Middle Sticks with their only loss to Flex in Week 9, only other game loss this season to Hog, finishing 17-3 in game score. Oklahomies though coming in, they're potentially the hottest team in gold capped. They started 1-3, a little bit of sandbagging going on, a little bit of trying to find themselves, but they've been 4-1 since then. And during that 4-1 run, their only loss was to TLM, which was a 2-1. They're the only team that took games off of both TLM and unnecessary roughness. It Things have been trending very much upwards for Oklahomies.
Definitely, and an RTM squad that, lost 2 weeks ago to Flex and, had a couple of relatively close games last week against Sleeper Diamonds. It'll be interesting to see if they're able to come back and really show that they do belong at the top of these standings and that they are the best team in Bilgewater. As they're playing against the Oklahoma's team that barely scraped by, but scraped by they did. With that 4-1, they saw what they needed to do, and they just won the games they needed to.
Yeah, but it sets up an interesting matchup where Return of the Middle Sticks maybe not playing their best League of Legends coming in versus Oklahomies, who definitely have been peaking at the right time. This game will be Wednesday night at 8:30. I want to say something too late for me with my current schedule, but we'll be there. You know, half asleep, but there. Um, so yeah,
Are you going to be there? Our team hasn't won without you. I mean, I
hasn't
know you're only top 15 top laners, but
right. Well, I guess we'll have to see. Maybe it'll be a mystery last second. Um, but yeah, our let's go over predictions really quick. Not a whole lot to go over, but our last bit of filing to do before we get into those quarterfinal matches. So our diamond games, the viewer is going to go ahead and predict Iron 5 with a 70%, almost 68.2%, 30 to 14 votes over good game losers. A lot of faith in your team, Akedo.
yeah, which is kind of worrisome. Usually they're against us. But either way, I think that this matchup is a lot closer than that percentage might indicate. I feel like GGL is definitely still a strong team, and even if they're on a downward swing, I think it's a team that you can't underestimate.
Yeah. Again, that one unscheduled, so we'll see when that one comes through during the scheduling chat and have a good cast hopefully for that.
I mean, if it does get scheduled, it's probably gonna be like midnight or something. So, yikes.
Our other Diamond quarterfinal, Landsneck versus Team Fish Taco, and again, this is 31 to 14 in favor of Landsneck, which honestly I think that this series is going to be really really close.
Extremely close. Even with Team Fish Taco sort of playing without their normal roster, I think this is still an extremely strong team and one that you can't sleep on. We see these high percentages, but I feel like it's significantly closer than that.
Yeah, so the viewers going with the favorites in both of the diamond matchups. We'll see if they pick anything different for the gold. This game is going to be on Tuesday. Do, 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 do. It's early on Tuesday, if I remember correctly.
Define
Six.
early.
It's at 6 p.m. That's really early for gamer standards. So that'll be at 6 p.m. and then we've got a diamond quarterfinal after that. Hopefully it'll segue nicely into that, and we won't have to delay the stream or do anything weird with that. But gold capped, TLM gets 81% of the vote over Weird Flex, but okay, that's a 35 to 8 vote count. And I mean, 9-0 undefeated regular season kind of speaks for itself. You know who else had an undefeated regular season though? Last split was
Who?
Piltover Pokes, and they lost in the quarterfinals to Jingo Squad.
So are you equating Shadow Isles to Demacia?
I We could equate it either way that you want to. I
Uh-huh.
believe that
Which way would you equate it
I
though?
believe that the higher percentage of the teams broke down into Demacia Shadow Isles and Noxus Bilgewater, but
So in your professional opinion, are we gonna see a 4-0 sweep then from Bilgewater?
no.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I
Either
th-
way, yeah, TLM is definitely the favorites for that game.
I think that we're probably looking at 2-2 if I had to give my best guesses. I think that I predict
I
differently
think you
than that,
predict
but
3-1.
um yeah. Because I got to make up some points. Unnecessary roughness, 75% over G5. That's 32 to 11. Um, I don't see any reason why that's not relatively representative as well.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I think that that'll be a really interesting matchup overall.
That
I think it
game.
could go
Oh,
either way.
sorry. The TLM versus Weird Flex game is going to be on. I already lost them. This is quality. It's Tuesday. So Tuesday at 9 p.m. TLM versus Weird Flex, and then uh, Thursday at 8:30 is Unnecessary Roughness versus G5. The game tonight, High Octane Gamers versus No Apologies. We've got Hog 32 to 11. So a lot of very similar percentages. It's kind of interesting. The 75% votes in favor of all of the higher seeds.
Do you think someone stuffed the ballot box?
I don't think so because we have TLM with a little bit bigger slice of the pie there. But
Hmm.
um, I think a lot of
Definitely
people
interesting how close they are.
Yeah, I think a lot of people see the seeding in front, and that's going to be the big determining factor. I think that this is the game that's probably most in favor of Bilgewater in terms of recent trends, where Hog has been, doing well with Cyrene, and No Apologies coming in a little bit limpy into the finish line here. Um, but we'll see if No Apologies can turn it on, if No Mind can have a big series tonight. And then our last one is going to be Return of the Middle Sticks. That's 81%. That's 36 to 8 over Oklahomies. Again, I think that the record doesn't indicate how strong Oklahomies have played during the last part of the split, and also how strong they've played the top teams in their division. So I'm particularly worried about it. I'm playing in the series, and we'll see how that equates. I don't think that we see a 4-0 from either conference, but 3-1s are possibility either way.
So if you had to predict that matchup then, do you think it's going to be 2-1 ROTM, 2-0? What do you think?
See, I would love to have a 2-0 for RTM so I can go to bed, so that's what I'm going to predict.
Okay, 2-0 ROTM. You heard it here first from the best top laner in the league, Meristematic.
Um, the RTM game is going to be Wednesday at 8:30. So, gold action the next 3 nights for you on Get Wrecked 1, and then the diamond game into the gold game on Tuesday. Nope, that's Thursday. I can read. No, it's Tuesday. I trolled myself. Tuesday night is our double header, and that's TFT Landsneck first, followed by TLM versus Weird Flex. So we'll keep it updated, I'm sure, in the announcements so that it's not confusing and you don't have to listen to my distorted voice over the internet tell you when everything's happening.
I hope
Um,
so. I'm thoroughly confused.
in terms of our votes, I believe we pretty much went with higher seeds as well, unfortunately. I picked No Apologies over Hog, though, as my big upset pick.
Yeah, I think that the really interesting one will be that GT5 UXR. It's kind of surprising that we both ended up going with the same one on that, so no chance for
Yeah, it's hard to make up ground when we keep picking the same things. Just yeah, maybe we'll weight these games and the land games a little bit more in the standings, make it interesting. Probably not though,
I mean, I
because
don't know about that. That
we're
doesn't
s-
sound like fun.
we're still agreeing, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Um. Anyway,
you need to
immediately.
start
Oh,
you need to start doing a lot more upsets, man.
yeah,
That's what it comes down to.
I really do. I did mine first though, and then you copied me. So.
As I do every week, actually. I copy you. That's why I'm ahead. Um,
um. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and cut it off here. If you are a team captain of any team, you should be getting a voting form. Plus, selected casters and admins who have reached out to me will also get a voting form for postseason awards. Just as a heads up, Bilgewater and Shadow Isles are completely separated because we've had no games in common in order to judge anything. So um, it'll have a Bilgewater and Shadow Isles separate award presentation show thing. Also for platinum capped specifically, from I support my team. He's created this metric um, for MVP voting that it's just a raw number based on kill participation, vision score, KDA, kills plus assists at 15, and the win percentage of the player. It just is going to generate a raw number at the end and give us an MVP for platinum based on a statistic. The player that wins that will get. Um, Gosh, okay. The MVP can pick any skin that they want as a reward. The second place can get any 13 or 50 or under skin, and the third place person is getting any 975 RP skin. This is for platinum only, specifically from I support my team. It is a metric, not something that he is picking individually. There, disclaimers said. So get
Shit,
hyped
I
for
wish I was
platinum.
playing in plat. What
Yeah.
the hell? Right, I take everything I said back about Silverhammer. He's great, but he's not giving out skins, so I don't know. Step it up.
So yeah, with that said, we're gonna go ahead and depart for the week. We'll see you next week. Should be Wednesday at the normal time for our final pod or our second to final podcast of the season, where we'll have end of season awards plus a land preview, and um, yeah, you won't want to miss to see. If it's Hulk for MVP or Toe Knuckles for MVP. It's Seymour has the logo. Wow, I'm already trolling. Or if
It's
they both
okay.
get it because they're in opposite divisions and it doesn't matter.
Get out of here with your logic. It has to be a head-to-head.
So thanks everybody for watching. Stay tuned for about 20 minutes from now. Will be game one of the quarterfinals between High Octane Gamers and No Apologies. Or Jamba Clout. Maybe Jamba Clout makes a resurgence to win the MVP.
That'd be pretty nutty.